Can everyone see this?
Yep, I can see it.
Yeah?
Yep, I can see it.
All right. So this is Majjhima Nikaya 70, Kita Giri Sutta at Kita Giri. Thus have I heard, on one occasion the Blessed One was wandering in the Kasi country together with a large sangha of bhikkhus. There he addressed the bhikkhus thus: Bhikkhus, I abstain from eating at night. By doing so, I am free from illness and affliction, and I enjoy lightness, strength, and a comfortable abiding. Come, bhikkhus, abstain from eating at night. By doing so, you too will be free from illness and affliction, and you will enjoy lightness, strength, and a comfortable abiding. So here the Buddha is probably one of the early proponents of intermittent fasting, eating one meal a day or eating before noon, which is what he initially introduced. It was a time before when the monks would gather in the night and go for alms as well, but that would be too troublesome for lay people, or could have been too troublesome for lay people. You have these figures in the shadows coming out from the trees, looking for food. It could be a little disconcerting. But initially, he decided that, instead of doing the one meal a day, you just don't eat afternoon. And this is generally for people who are taking the 8, 10, or more precepts. So they say, yes, Venerable Sir. Then as the Blessed One was wandering by stages in the Kasi country, he eventually arrived at a Kasi town called Kitagiri. There he lived in this Kasi town, Kitagiri. Now on that occasion, the bhikkhus led by Asaji and Punabasukha were residing at Kitagiri. So these two monks were troublesome because they were not following the Vinaya as they should have if they had been ordained, which they were. And so there's some background behind why they are mentioned, but essentially they were naughty monks, let's just say that. Then a number of bhikkhus went and told them, friends, the Blessed One and the Sangha of bhikkhus now abstain from eating at night. By doing so, they are free from illness and affliction, and they enjoy health, strength, and a comfortable abiding. Come, friends, abstain from eating at night. By doing so, you too will be free from illness and affliction, and you will enjoy lightness, strength, and a comfortable abiding. When this was said, the bhikkhus led by Asaji and Punabasukha told those bhikkhus, friends, we eat in the evening, in the morning, and in the day outside the proper time. By doing so, we are free from illness and affliction, and we enjoy lightness, strength, and a comfortable abiding. Why should we abandon a benefit visible here and now and to pursue the benefit to be achieved at a future time? We shall eat in the evening, in the morning, and in the day outside the proper time. So they're not following the Vinaya here. And so they're saying, well, we eat 3 times a day, but we're fine. So why should we listen? Since the bhikkhus were unable to convince the bhikkhus led by Asaji and Punabasukha, they went to the Blessed One. After paying homage to him, they sat down at one side and told him all that had occurred, adding, Venerable Sir, since we were unable to convince the bhikkhus led by Asaji and Punabasukha, we have reported this matter to the Blessed One. Then the Blessed One addressed a certain bhikkhu thus, Come, bhikkhus, tell the bhikkhus led by Asaji and Punabasukha in my name that the teacher calls them. Yes, Venerable Sir, he replied. And he went to the bhikkhus led by Asaji and Punabasukha and told them, the teacher calls you, friends. Yes, friend, they replied, and they went to the Blessed One, and after paying homage to him, sat down at one side. The Blessed One then said, Bhikkhus, is it true that a number of bhikkhus went and told you, friend, the Blessed One and the Sangha now abstain from eating at night. Come, friends, abstain from eating at night. You told those bhikkhus, Friends, we eat in the evening. Why should we abandon a benefit visible here and now to pursue a benefit to be achieved at a future time? We shall eat in the evening, in the morning, and in the day outside the proper time. Yes, Venerable Sir. Bhikkhus, have you known me to teach the Dhamma in such a way as this? Whatever this person experiences, whether pleasant or painful, or neither painful nor pleasant, unwholesome states diminish in him and wholesome states increase. So let's look at that question. What is he saying here? Whatever this person experiences, that is any kind of feeling, whether pleasant or unpleasant, or neither pleasant nor unpleasant, unwholesome states diminish in him and wholesome states increase. And the answer is no, Venerable Sir. Why is the answer that? Because generally, when there are any experiences that arise, the mind is generally not having any kind of mindfulness. So he's talking about it in a general sense, that somebody has an experience, whether that's pleasant or painful or neutral, there will be the inclination towards unwholesome states that may arise in the form of craving, identification, and so on. Bhikkhus, have you not known me to teach the Dhamma in such a way as this? Here, when someone feels a certain kind of pleasant feeling, unwholesome states increase in him and wholesome states diminish. But when someone feels another kind of pleasant feeling, unwholesome states diminish in him and wholesome states increase. Here, when someone feels a certain kind of painful feeling, unwholesome states increase in him and wholesome states diminish. But when someone feels another kind of painful feeling, unwholesome states diminish in him and wholesome states increase. Here, when someone feels a certain kind of neither painful nor pleasant feeling, unwholesome states increase in him and wholesome states diminish. But when someone feels another kind of neither painful nor pleasant feeling, unwholesome states diminish in him and wholesome states increase. Yes, Venerable Sir, that's a lot to unpack, so let's take it bit by bit. What is he talking about here? He's saying, when someone feels a certain kind of pleasant feeling, unwholesome states increase in him and wholesome states diminish. What are we talking about here? We're talking about sensual, pleasant experiences. Generally, when there are sensual experiences tied to the 5 chords of sensual stimulation, the eyes, the ears, the nose, the tongue, and the body, then there is a liability for unwholesome states to increase and wholesome states to diminish. But when you experience a different kind of pleasant feeling, which is that's a mental pleasant feeling, whether that's metta or whether that's loving kindness or compassion or joy or equanimity, whether that's the first jhana, the second jhana, the third jhana, the fourth, the fifth, the sixth, the seventh, the eighth, whatever it is, therein, unwholesome states diminish and wholesome states will increase. Here, when someone feels a certain kind of painful feeling, unwholesome states increase in him and wholesome states diminish. But when someone feels another kind of painful feeling, unwholesome states diminish in him and wholesome states increase. What are we talking about here? Again, we're saying, in this case, hindrances, when they arise as painful feeling or any kind of painful physical feeling through the eyes, the ears, the nose, the tongue, the body, there's a liability for unwholesome states to arise because we say, oh, that hurts, oh, I don't like it, and then changes into aversion and then clinging and so on. But when someone has a painful feeling and has some vega, so that is spiritual urgency. That's like, I don't like this and I want it to stop. I don't like the suffering that's arising. Is there a way out? This leads to the diminishing of unwholesome states and the increasing of wholesome states. Here, when someone feels a certain kind of neither painful nor pleasant feeling, unwholesome states increase in him and wholesome states diminish. What kind of neutral feeling would this be? This would be indifference, apathy. It's the evil twin of equanimity. Indifference is like, I don't care, whatever. I just don't care, And it's like there's a flavor of aversion if you think about it, because there's like, I'm choosing to ignore what's being done, but it's affecting me. It's still affecting a sense of me because I'm choosing to ignore it. And because of that identification, unwholesome states will increase and wholesome states will diminish. But if I have equanimity, which is what? A different kind of neither pleasant nor painful feeling. Equanimity here says, I'm experiencing pain, I'm experiencing whatever it is, but I'm choosing to stay with it without being affected one way. My mind and its attention is related to understanding things as they actually are. In the first case of indifference, I'm pushing away the things as they actually are. But in the second case, I have equanimity and I'm seeing the unwholesome states and I'm choosing to let them go. I'm seeing pain, but I have equanimity about the pain. Pain is there. Pain is not the issue. Pain is painful, obviously. Pain is suffering. Obviously, it's physical kind of suffering. But the mental aspect of it is what creates the suffering. The mental aspect of it, which says, I don't like this pain, make it stop, makes it worse than it actually is, makes it seem more painful than it actually is. You will see this for yourself when you are meditating. There's an itch on your nose. And if you start paying attention to that itch, now the itch moves on to your neck. And then it moves through the entire body. And the only reason is because your attention to it is proliferating it. We're not saying that we should ignore the pain. What we're saying is acknowledge the pain, acknowledge the irritation, acknowledge whatever it is, but from a standpoint of equanimity, seeing things as they actually are. When you do this, your mind is clear. It's like you are in the world but not of it. You understand things as they are. Things are happening, but your mind remains, after a while, disenchanted and dispassionate. So he says, good bhikkhus, and if it were unknown by me, unseen, unfounded, unrealized, uncontacted by wisdom thus, here when someone feels a certain kind of pleasant feeling, unwholesome states increase in him and wholesome states diminish, would it be fitting for me, not knowing that, to say, abandon such a kind of pleasant feeling? No, venerable sir. But because it is known by me, seen, found, realized, contacted by wisdom thus, here when someone feels a certain kind of pleasant feeling, unwholesome states increase in him and wholesome states diminish, that I therefore say, abandon such a kind of pleasant feeling. So in other words, the Buddha is saying, I have seen for myself, when I was a bodhisattva, I saw for myself that when such feeling arose in me, that if I tied the mind to it, if I tied my attention to it, no matter how pleasant it is, it led to my misfortune. It led to me having more suffering with unwholesome states arising. That's why I'm saying abandon those, let them go. If it were unknown by me, unseen, unfounded, unrealized, uncontacted by wisdom thus, here, when someone feels another kind of pleasant feeling, unwholesome states diminish in him and wholesome states increase, would it be fitting for me, not knowing that, to say, enter upon and abide in such a kind of pleasant feeling? No, venerable sir, but because it is known by me, seen, found, realized, contacted by wisdom thus, here when someone feels another kind of pleasant feeling, unwholesome states diminish in him, and wholesome states increase, that I therefore say, enter upon and abide in such a kind of pleasant feeling. So again, on the night of his enlightenment, he saw this for himself. When I have these kinds of feelings, which are in conjunction with the jhanic factors, or which are proliferative of the jhanic factors, when I have a pleasant mindset, when I have joy that is not tied to any of the physical sense bases, then I see that my mind starts to get collected. And by doing so, unwholesome states diminish and wholesome states increase. Then I can still abide in that pleasant feeling. Why not abide in that pleasant feeling? It doesn't cause me harm. It doesn't cause another person harm. Same thing with what he says. If it were unknown by me, but because it is known by me, contacted by wisdom thus, here when someone feels a certain kind of painful feeling, unwholesome states increase in him, and wholesome states diminish in me. States diminish, that I therefore say abandon such a kind of feeling. So he notices when there's craving, when there's any kind of hindrance, what to do. Let it go. Siksar it. If it were unknown by me, but because it is known by me, contacted by wisdom thus, here when someone feels another kind of painful feeling, and unwholesome states diminish in him and wholesome states increase, that I therefore say, enter upon and abide in such a kind of painful feeling. That's an interesting one. So he says, enter upon and abide in such a kind of painful feeling. What he's saying is, go with that samvega. See where it leads you, because it will lead you to a search for a way out of suffering. If it were unknown by me, but because it is known by me, contacted by wisdom thus, here when someone feels a certain kind of neither painful nor pleasant feeling, unwholesome states increase in him and wholesome states diminish, that I therefore say, abandon such a kind of neither painful nor pleasant feeling. Indifference or ignorance is another one. Just not being aware. The lack of mindfulness in itself is neither pleasant nor painful, although inherently painful because it leads to further craving, clinging, and becoming, leading to suffering. So what do you do with that? Abandon it. Let it go. Siksar it. If it were unknown by me, but because it is known by me, contacted by wisdom thus, here when someone feels another kind of neither painful nor pleasant feeling, unwholesome states diminish in him and wholesome states increase, that I therefore say, enter upon and abide in such a kind of neither painful nor pleasant feeling, that is equanimity. When I have equanimity, true equanimity of seeing things as they actually are without getting affected one way or the other, one way being attracted, one way being repulsed, and just being free of the dualities of attraction and repulsion, and seeing things as they actually are, my mind will automatically disengage from identifying with any of that. And my mind will experience disenchantment. It'll be able to see for itself. If I go down this road, if I choose to do this, if I choose to pay attention to that, it's going to lead me into a cycle of suffering. And so I'm disenchanted from that. And I have dispassion. Nothing sticks in the mind anymore. Because I do not say of all bhikkhus that they still have work to do with diligence, nor do I say of all bhikkhus that they have no more work to do with diligence. I do not say of those bhikkhus who are arahats with taints destroyed, who have lived the holy life, done what had to be done, laid down the burden, reached the true goal, destroyed the fetters of being, and are completely liberated through final knowledge, that they still have work to do with diligence. Why is that? They have done their work with diligence. They have used mindfulness. They have utilized the four foundations of mindfulness. They have practiced and practiced and practiced. They have seen for themselves. They have uprooted craving and ignorance and the fetters. And so they are no more capable of being negligent. Imagine that, being incapable of being negligent. It's just not possible for such a person. I say of such bhikkhus who are in higher training, whose minds have not yet reached the goal, and who are still aspiring to the supreme security from bondage, that they still have work to do with diligence. Why is that? Because when those venerable ones make use of suitable resting places and associate with good friends and nurture their spiritual faculties, they may, by realizing for themselves with direct knowledge here and now, enter upon and abide in the supreme goal of the holy life, for the sake of which clansmen rightly go forth from the home life into homelessness. Seeing this fruit of diligence for these bhikkhus, I say they still have work to do with diligence. So there are people who are in training. They have yet to do the work. They have yet to perfect the ability to be fully diligent at all times, everywhere. But because they still have work to do, the Buddha is saying they still have to be diligent. They're not arhats yet. They haven't perfected their awakening yet. Now here's the interesting categorization of the 7 kinds of people. Because there are 7 kinds of persons to be found existing in the world. What 7? They are: 1 liberated in both ways, 1 liberated by wisdom, a body witness, 1 attained to view, 1 liberated by faith, a Dhamma follower, and a faith follower. What kind of person is 1 liberated in both ways? Here, some person contacts with the body. Now, when he says body, he's talking about the Manomaya Kosha, or another way of looking at it is the mental body, and abides in those liberations that are peaceful, immaterial, transcending forms, and his taints are destroyed by his seeing with wisdom. This kind of person is called 1 liberated in both ways. I do not say of such a bhikkhu that he still has work to do with diligence. Why is that? He has done his work with diligence. He is no more capable of being negligent. So let's break this down. This is an arhat. This is somebody who has made contact with their mind with the 4 form jhanas, right? Abides in those liberations and the liberations that are peaceful and immaterial. Infinite space, infinite consciousness, nothingness, neither perception and non-perception. And they have destroyed their taints. So such a person is able to traverse through any of those jhanas, has traversed through all the 8 jhanas, and experienced the destruction of the taints. Such a person, for example, would be someone like Sariputta. What kind of person is 1 liberated by wisdom? Here, some person does not contact with the body and abide in those liberations and that are peaceful and immaterial, transcending forms, but his taints are destroyed by his seeing with wisdom. This kind of person is called 1 liberated by wisdom. I do not say of such a bhikkhu that he still has work to do with diligence. Why is that? He has done his work with diligence. He is no more capable of being negligent. This is somebody who has traversed through the first 4 jhanas and destroyed the taints. So initially we're talking about somebody who's gone through the 8 jhanas, but here they've gone only up to the 4th jhana, but they've destroyed their taints, and therefore they're called liberated by wisdom. What kind of person is a body witness? Here, some person contacts with the body and abides in those liberations that are peaceful and immaterial, transcending forms, and some of his taints are destroyed by his seeing with wisdom. This kind of person is called a body witness. what is also known as a kaya sakha. I say of such a bhikkhu that he still has work to do with diligence. Why is that? Because when that venerable one makes use of suitable resting places and associates with good friends and nurtures his spiritual faculties, he may, by realizing for himself a direct knowledge here and now, enter upon and abide in that supreme goal of the holy life, for the sake of which clansmen rightly go forth from the home life into homelessness. Seeing this fruit of diligence for such a bhikkhu, I say that he still has work to do with diligence. So this person is somebody who's gone through the 8 jhanas. He abides in the liberations of the first, second, third, and fourth jhana, and the formless attainments of infinite space, infinite consciousness, nothingness, and neither perception or non-perception. But he still has work to do. Not all of his taints are destroyed. So this could be somebody who was a stream enterer all the way up to an anagami, not yet achieved arhatship. What kind of person is one attained to view? Here, some person does not contact with the body and abide in those liberations that are peaceful and immaterial, transcending forms. That means they're only the first 4 jhanas, or they've experienced the first 4 jhanas. But some of his taints are destroyed by his seeing with wisdom. So he is a stream enterer, and he has viewed at least a stream enterer, and he has reviewed and examined with wisdom the teachings proclaimed by the Tathagata. This kind of person is called one attained to view. I say of such a one that he still has work to do with diligence, because that person, seeing the fruit of diligence for such a bhikkhu, I say he still has work to do. Okay, so he's just repeating the same thing. But a view attainer, somebody who has attained to right view by experience, but they yet have not gone to arhatship. So such a person is doing the practice in such a way that their mind comes to right view immediately. Right? Such a person is essentially more attuned to the practice of right view. That's one way of saying it. They aren't necessarily a stream enter with fruition. That's another way of saying it. They have attained view, but it hasn't been fully formed. What kind of person is one liberated by faith? Here, some person does not contact with the body and abide in those liberations that are peaceful and immaterial, transcending forms, but some of his taints are destroyed by his seeing with wisdom. His faith is planted, rooted, and established in the Tathagata. So there's the difference. Such a person, in the first case, has examined with wisdom. So his faculty of wisdom is very sharp. So in other words, a person will reflect on what the Buddha has said, reflect on the teachings, see for oneself the impermanence of arising and passing away. In the other case, in this case, liberated by faith, such a person is called liberated by faith because their faith in the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha is implanted, is rooted and established. This kind of person is called one liberated by faith. I say of such a bhikkhu that he still has work to do with diligence. So this is, again, somebody at least with stream entry. What kind of person is a Dhamma follower? So I think I have to correct myself here, if I understood correctly. But we'll continue and I'll explain why. What kind of person is a Dhamma follower? Here, some person does not contact with the body and abide in those liberations that are peaceful and immaterial, transcending form. So they have gotten to the 4th jhana. In all these cases where they are not abiding in any of the immaterial, that doesn't mean they haven't experienced jhana. It just means they've gone up to the 4th jhana. You still need to experience jhana. And his taints are not yet destroyed by his seeing with wisdom. But those teachings proclaimed by the Tathagata are accepted by him after reflecting on them sufficiently with wisdom. Furthermore, he has these qualities: the faith faculty, the energy faculty, the mindfulness faculty, the collectedness faculty, and the wisdom faculty. This kind of person is called a Dhamma follower. So if I understood correctly from my reading of some of the commentaries about this, and I think even Bhikkhu Bodhi's notes on this, because there is a text called Panya Pugati, Panya Pugala, and that talks about these different kinds of attainments, so these different kinds of people. So in the case of somebody who is attained to view and somebody who's liberated by faith, they could be a stream enterer and beyond until anagami. But in the case of a Dhamma follower and the faith follower, they are just a stream entered, but without fruition, right? So they have these qualities and they have yet to develop them. That is to say, the faith faculty, the energy faculty, the mindfulness faculty, they're in the process of further developing those. But such a person is either a Dhamma follower, in which case they have reflected on the teachings. They have heard the teachings and they say, okay, I understand this. And they have an experience through one of the first four jhanas. And then they see for themselves that this is the path. So they are a Dhamma follower. What kind of person is a faith follower? Here, someone does not contact with the body and abide in those liberations that are peaceful and immaterial. Again, doesn't get into the formless jhanas. But furthermore, he has sufficient faith in and love for the Tathagata. So he has saddha, he has devotion, he has some level of, this is probably the way. And therefore, he has these qualities: the faith faculty, the energy faculty, the mindfulness faculty, the collectedness faculty, and the wisdom faculty. This kind of person is called a faith follower. I see of such a bhikkhu that he still has work to do with diligence. Okay, let's move on because this is all repeat. Now, this is very important here. The Buddha says, bhikkhus, I do not say that final knowledge is achieved all at once. On the contrary, final knowledge is achieved by gradual training, by gradual practice, by gradual progress. And how is final knowledge achieved? By gradual training, gradual practice, gradual progress. Here, one who has faith in a teacher visits him. This is, in other words, you know that this person knows what they're talking about. In this case, it could be the Buddha or a disciple of the Buddha. When he visits him, he pays respect for him. He doesn't have contempt. He doesn't say, oh, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. The moment you have contempt for a teacher, you are no longer going to be able to hear what they have to say. And, as a teacher, as a guide, if you notice this happening, then don't waste your time any further. You're not here to try to convince anyone of anything. If a person is coming to you generally to understand the Dhamma, then they won't have contempt for it. But if a person is trying to test you, and you can notice that, don't waste your time. Don't waste their time, don't waste your time. So when he pays respect to him, he gives ear, so he actually listens. One who gives ear hears the Dhamma. Having heard the Dhamma, he memorizes it, so he examines it, and then he gains a reflective acceptance of those teachings. When he has gained a reflective acceptance of those teachings, zeal springs up in him. That is enthusiasm. When zeal springs up in him, he applies his will. He tries and applies the Dhamma. He practices the Dhamma. Having applied his will, he scrutinizes. Having scrutinized, he strives. This word strive, it doesn't mean that I'm going to push. Having scrutinized, which means he self-reflects. He studies how his mind is working. He makes adjustments and he keeps going. Therefore, he realizes with the body, the mental body, the supreme truth and sees it by penetrating it with wisdom. There has not been that faith, bhikkhus, and there has not been that visiting. And there has not been that paying of respect, that there has not been that giving of ear, not been that hearing of the Dhamma, not been that memorizing of the Dhamma, not been that examining of the meaning of the Dhamma, and therefore there has not been that reflective acceptance of the teachings, nor that zeal, nor the application of will, nor the scrutiny, nor the striving. So he's talking to Asaji and the other guy. You have lost your way. You have been practicing the wrong way. Just how far, bhikkhus, have these misguided men strayed from this doctrine and discipline? Bhikkhus, there is a four-phrased statement, and when it is recited, a wise man would quickly understand it. I shall recite it to you, bhikkhus. Try to understand it. Venerable Sir, who are we that we should understand the Dhamma? Bhikkhus, even with a teacher who is concerned with material things, an heir to material things, attached to material things, such haggling by the disciples would not be proper. If we get this, we will do it. If we don't get this, we won't do it. So that should be said when the teacher is the Tathagata, who is utterly... So what should be said when the teacher is the Tathagata, who is utterly detached from material things? In other words, when you have students who are bargaining, oftentimes when Bhante would be having the interviews, the one word he didn't like was but, because you're haggling with the teacher. But what if I do this? But what if I do that? But what if? No. You're not hearing what's going on. You're not listening to what's being said. For a faithful disciple who is intent on fathoming the teacher's dispensation, it is natural that he conducts himself thus. The Blessed One is the teacher, I am a disciple. The Blessed One knows, I don't know. For a faithful disciple who is intent on fathoming the dispensation, the teacher's dispensation is nourishing and refreshing. For a faithful disciple who is intent on fathoming the teacher's dispensation, it is natural that he conduct himself thus. This is a little troublesome, so let me break this down. Willingly let only my skin, sinews, and bones remain, and let the flesh and blood dry up on my body, but my energy shall not be relaxed so long as I have not attained what can be attained by manly strength, manly energy, and manly persistence. That's a troublesome statement there. You don't want to do that. I mean, I wouldn't do this, and I don't think anyone should be doing this. This is going to cause you more harm than it is going to cause you freedom. But here, I think the spirit of the message should be taken, which is virya. In modern standards, or by modern standards, the Buddha's culture was sexist. So obviously he's talking about manly, right? Their manly strength, manly energy, manly persistence. I have to strive. I have to be like a man. I have to have manly strength. That's virya. But really what we're talking about when we say virya is having right effort and the right determination. Can I sit for a little longer? Can I sit for 10 more minutes? What is it that is causing me to come up from my sits? Can I not sit for longer? What is it that I can do to let go of the causes and conditions that are not allowing me to sit for longer periods of time? Now, the critics will say, oh, he's saying we should sit for 3 hours, 4 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours, 15 hours. And that's how people get in trouble. No, that's not how people get in trouble. People get in trouble because they don't listen. They think that they're going to be meditating for 10 hours, 15 hours, 12 hours. And all they do is they push and become one-pointed. And that's how they go crazy. That's how they break their mind. You want to sit for 10 hours, do it in a relaxed way. I know of students, I know of participants, I know of meditators who have done that on my retreats, who have sat for 6, 7, 8 hours, skipped lunch, skipped the tea, and just kept sitting. But their mind is relaxed. Their mind has nothing going on in it. Compare that to somebody who doesn't listen, who's a stupid idiot, who's a misguided person, and decides that they're going to sit for 10 hours until they become an arahant. And they push and push and push, and they forget to use the 6 R's. They say, no, I will find a way and I will do it. And they do this and they break their mind. And they have all kinds of visions. They have all these kinds of things that happen. They become catatonic. They do all kinds of things because they don't listen. Because they think they know better. But for such a one, as the Buddha says, a faithful disciple who is intent on fathoming the dispensation, one of two fruits may be expected. Right? One who is intent in such a way that he has energy. Virya is the energy, the effort, the right effort, making the diligent effort to notice when unwholesome states are arising, to let go of those unwholesome states, to bring up wholesome states and keep those wholesome states going just by merely resting in them. This is what you're doing with the 6 R's. You recognize, oh, here's an unwholesome state. You let go of it, you release. You relax and tranquilize. This is the main part people forget. Relax, re-smile, then come back to your object. Gentle does it. Slow and steady does it. And so 2 fruits may be expected. Either final knowledge here and now, or if there is a trace of clinging, that is to say, there's still an attachment to the Dhamma. There's still an identification with the Dhamma. There's still a utilization of the Dhamma as a tool, without realizing that even the Dhamma is essentially in the conditioned realm. There is non-return for such a person. That is what the Blessed One said. The bhikkhus were satisfied and delighted in the Blessed One's words.